It's Mac and Perry in the place. Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry go live to create. Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry invite you to stay.
Welcome to TELUS STORYHIVE's On Location here in Medicine Hat at Art Room on 2nd. I'm Mike.
I'm Daniel J. Perryman, and this is...
I'm Erin Stelmaschuk Biegel.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for agreeing to chat with us, Erin.
Yes.
I'm really excited to learn about your artistic practice and talk about some of your pieces.
I predominantly work with copper, and it's kind of technically called copper tooling. So the copper is really thin sheets of metal, and the image is pressed out from the front and the back. So you keep flipping it over to press the image out. So the copper is lightweight enough that you don't have to hammer it. And that really appeals to me. I think that if it was something where I was like hammering or tapping away, I don't think I would have quite been drawn to it as much as I am. And yeah, everything's an original. All the pieces I do are by hand. There's no templates or copies or anything like that I do. So yeah, that makes it quite unique as well, not only with the medium, but with that as well.
Absolutely, yeah, it's very unique and very striking, and yeah, I'm really curious, like when we get to the showcase, like the actual process around it. But for what I was curious about was also like going back, like let's say when you were younger, like when did you start first making art?
First making art when I was very little. It was kind of my favorite thing to do. I would lay on the floor and draw and draw and draw. And then my first studio, I say, was behind the big chair in the living room. And I would like have all my materials back there, and I would like even like paper mache back there and paint and make all kinds of things. So yeah, just since I was little, that's what I was always drawn to, was creating.
And was your family creative at all, or?
Not, my mom and dad, not overly. My mom like quilted and did some crafts like that. My dad could definitely draw. He didn't spend time doing it, but the few times that I remember him sitting with me and drawing, I was always kind of blown away by his animals and stuff like that. But it kind of skipped a generation, because my mom's mom and her uncle were very creative. They were fine artists, and more the hobby than the occupation, but they were really committed to it and did a lot of creating. Yeah.
And what sort of like art were they making?
They did a lot of watercolors and painting. My uncle, who lived out in Victoria, did a lot of open air work with different groups and boats in the sea, and yeah, that's what I kind of remember of his.
Neat, yeah. Nice, well, that's great, yeah. And so yeah, you're very young, you know, your first studio at home there. I guess like what came next in your artistic journey that you can remember from?
Art class in high school and industrial arts was kind of my saving grace. That's what really kind of kept me there and was what I really looked forward to each week. All of the other classes were kind of a bit of a slog to get through. So yeah, fine arts I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the drafting portion of that. And we did, like, I learned how to work a lathe, and that was the first time that I played with clay and played on the wheel. Photography, developed all of our own photographs, learned the darkroom. So for industrial arts was really great. And then also my art class is where I was first introduced to the copper. So we had a really cool art teacher, and he just had this big roll of copper, and he would cut us off chunks of it, and then he collected all of the calendar pages from years past with different images on it. So when he taught us how to do it, we would have that image on top of the piece of copper, and then we would trace it out. When you took it off, you had, you know, kind of a rudimentary drawing of what you were starting with. And then he taught us how to tool it and press it from the front and the back. Yeah. yeah. And then right now, like I use a chemical patina to create the depth in my pieces. But back in high school, we were using Indian ink, say, and you would paint it on and then rub it off, and it stayed in all the recessed areas.
Okay.
So
Yeah, it was quite early on then that you were introduced to copper. Yeah, was that where you went to school? Was that something that was typical, or was that for that particular teacher wanted to introduce that?
I think it was that particular teacher. Yeah, I think it was him. They also used to have copper tooling kits that you could get, and I think that just the age that he probably did those kits when he was a little boy. And then I'm assuming he was maybe more interested in it, and then got a roll of copper and wanted to do bigger pieces. And he was obviously a very creative guy.
Yeah, because it's something I've never really seen. So is that something that would have been like something people did generations before? It was more common, the copper tooling?
I think so, because there was these kits, and they would be different images, sort of Western, and I think Western images are kind of mainly. I've only ever heard about them from other people. When I'm showing art, if I'm traveling, lots of people, older generations than I am, will come up to me and say, "Oh yeah, I used to do this when I was a kid, and there was kits, and it all got laid out, and same thing, you pressed it, and then the copper was thin enough that you would go from the front and the back and press the image out." So,
Interesting. So maybe some of that Western connection too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's definitely a metal that you see quite a bit in Western decor, Western fashion, with like jewelry and home decor with the copper sinks and fixtures and fume heads and stuff like that you see. So I think it all kind of ties together.
No, it's really cool. Yeah. And again, because I know you grew up north of Grand Prairie, right? In like a rural area.
Yeah.
Did that influence your artistic practice at all?
Oh, definitely. Most of my artwork is nature inspired. It's very lush in northern Alberta. It's beautiful, and we spent a lot of time outdoors growing up, camping and hiking, and we lived quite far out of town. We spent a lot of time down at the river, and so that was my main inspiration. And I was always quite taken by the landscape, like the whole panoramic view, but then I also really loved to focus in on like every individual leaf and plant and the textures of it and the structure and what made it up and such. So definitely nature inspired.
Because you went to Grant MacEwan. Was that kind of the next step in your journey after high school?
Yeah, it was.
And what led you to going there?
Yeah, I think that it was, relatively close to home. Edmonton is 6 hours from where I grew up. But for a fine art program, I think that was just one that appealed to me. Their campus was separate from the Grant MacEwan main campus. So going from a very small town to a big city, that felt a little less daunting. I think that was probably one of the main reasons I chose that. And then I got in too. That was was part of it as well. So
of course, And you said you were focusing on copper a lot in your studies there, but I'm also just curious because a lot of times with post-secondary, there's a lot of exploration or learning or things.
Yes.
I'm curious maybe how that time maybe influenced your artistic practice.
Yeah, it was a lot more exploration. Me continuing on with the copper was kind of at the end of the program, but before that it was a lot more photography. We were still developing all of our own film, a lot more sculpture, focused a lot on drawing, large-scale drawing, a lot of figurative drawing, a lot of life drawing. What else did we do there? Yeah, it was a wide variety. Yeah, and definitely influenced me. Gave me a lot more confidence having that schooling behind me, and I really played with a lot more mediums. Met a lot of really cool people. My instructors were phenomenal, and they all had really different backgrounds of where their art had taken them and where they were showing and what they were doing with their art. We were also we went to every art show that there was, every opening, right? and yeah, we were just exposed to a lot more art and different ways of incorporating it into life, because not all of my instructors' art was saleable. They were doing a lot of conceptual pieces. So that was interesting. That was a real eye-opener from someone that was from a really small town. Growing up in Fairview, we had a great fine art center, which I also spent a lot of time at. Sculpting, I did a lot of clay there, and showing, that's where I first was hanging shows with other artists, and had an opportunity to show my work. Yeah, so that was kind of an initial step for me as well.
And so that would have been before you went to Grant MacEwan? Or?
Kind of both. I took classes at the Fine Arts Center before I went to Grant MacEwan, and then when we moved back up north after I graduated, that's when I had some shows there and was spending a lot more time on my own there. And taught a few classes as well there. So
yeah, so after post-secondary, like you mentioned, you did teach some classes back home. But yeah, I guess what came next once you graduated from Grant MacEwan?
I was really trying to find my place as an artist. I did sign painting and advertising and some sort of craft sales. There was a group, or there still is a group called the Night of Artists, which were based out of Edmonton, and I got involved with that group, and it was really instrumental in me taking on fine art as my career. So a great group of artists. We traveled from Victoria to Ottawa showing together. It was headed up by Phil Elaine, who now has the Night of Artists Gallery in Edmonton. And that's his hub now that he works from, and again supporting many artists. Like I would say hundreds of thousands of, just tons of artists in the years that he's done that. So yeah, they were a really instrumental group for me. And he brought the show up to Northern Alberta. We did shows in Grand Prairie and Fairview, up to Manning, and then like I said, traveled from Victoria to Ottawa with it. So that was really instrumental for me.
Yeah. Well, I've got several questions about that. And so what specifically do you think it was about that group that was so instrumental for you?
Well, it was the support. You were with other artists. You were all supporting each other, advertising for each other. These shows, your circles overlapped, and that's how you got, the shows were sold out. Phil really set it up so that it wasn't intimidating like some people might feel coming into a gallery. He would have live music and food, and it was a one-night kind of party with all this amazing fine art. He would pick cool venues. So we were supporting each other, and just creating venues for ourselves, right? When you're a beginning artist, it's really difficult to get into a gallery, right? And to even know how to go about doing that. It wasn't something that they taught at post-secondary. So that was a key part for me, definitely. And then my work was really well received. I was predominantly working with copper at that point. I would have some paintings that I was taking with me to shows. You had a lot more exposure. Galleries were coming to these shows. That's how I got into the Adele Campbell Gallery in Whistler. And you just had exposure that you wouldn't have if you were on your own, if you were solo trying to do those things.
I'm curious, was there ever any a show that you had to put up that didn't sell out or didn't go well at that time?
Yeah, you know what? The Ottawa show was a bit more of a stretch, just because we had all traveled from so much further and didn't know as many people. And then also the venue that we were at was quite a bit larger. And so that one felt like it was a lot quieter. Yeah, we had a great music at each one. Again, Night of Artists, Phil was really supporting musicians as well. And so they would get different musicians for each place, And they also brought a crowd too, right? That was a whole nother layer of it. So, yeah.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you're involved with that group for a period of time, maybe on and off. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. What came next in your artistic journey?
I think next is probably when we moved down to southern Alberta here, and I set up my studio, We Farm, outside of Bow Island. And so I set up my studio, and it was in our yard, which was really important to me, that when we did start growing our family, I would still have my studio and my studio time, and it was near enough that you know, if the kids were having a nap, I could set up a baby monitor and zip out to the studio, because it was really important for me not only to kind of keep up what I had already been building, but for my mental health, like just to have a place to go. And creating for me was something, like I said, that I'd always done since I was a kid, and it's really a part of my daily of my day-to-day life.
You have a family. You're still making pieces. You're still exhibiting. Yeah. What came next?
So that was pretty steady for probably about 15 or 16 years. Just keeping up with the galleries that carried my work, not traveling as much with it, which I was happy for that, because that was a really labor-intensive portion of it. And then Art Room on 2nd is a group of 4 of us. And we all started showing together around Medicine Hat, doing pop-ups, probably about 3 years ago now, and really trying to figure out how we could do this full-time, and how to have a gallery space in Medicine Hat that people could come to, that could support the community, that could support artists, and could be a place for students to come and hang out and be inspired. There was a couple places in Medicine Hat, again, Inspire Gallery, which closed down recently, and a few other locations that showed fine art that had closed kind of recently. And this location was available, and we thought it was really quite perfect for an art gallery. The building itself and the location here on 2nd Street we really love. And so that was kind of, as my kids got older and I was venturing out and wanting to show a little bit more, that was kind of how that started.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and then how many of you are in the group?
So the 4 of us opened Art Room. So it's myself and Teresa Eisenbarth and Ursula Mazer and Jackie de Blasio. And right now we've got 15 artists that are in the gallery here, and they're all local to southern Alberta and southern Saskatchewan.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, yeah. And then so the 4 of you, like, what was that process like when you were like looking for the space or wanting to grow that way? Is it kind of like all 4 of you quite collaborative that way?
Yeah, it was all kind of trial and error. We enjoyed showing together. We enjoyed the exposure in Medicine Hat. Our work showed very well together, quite different from abstract to my copper to paintings, landscapes, florals. Like, we really felt like we had a diverse group with just the 4 of us.
And you recently had your grand opening here. How did that go?
We did. It was great. Very well received. We're feeling a lot of support from Medicine Hat. We joined the chamber, and they did a really cool ribbon cutting for us, which, you know, made us feel really special and very welcomed here on 2nd Street. And in Medicine Hat in general. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. And you mentioned like you're exhibiting other artists' work, like 15 artists, you said.
Yeah, I think there's 15 or 16 of us here now. Yeah.
And it's from kind of all over.
Yeah, throughout southern Alberta and southern Saskatchewan, and we've brought on a few potters as well, and clay sculptors, and we have a lot of different mediums, and a lot of different mediums, a lot of different backgrounds of people. you can spend a lot of time here in the gallery. Yeah, it's a great space and it's a nice size space, so we are really able to, you know, not only have like a couple pieces from each person, but really feature like a body of their work.
Nice, yeah. And I guess, I mean, you've recently opened, but I guess what would be kind of your vision for Art Room on Second of what it can become?
Yeah, you know, my vision is really longevity. I would really like for the community to support the artists that are here. And again, I think it's really important for a community to be supportive of artists and to have a place for artists. And I really see this being a place for artists, right? Like I said, from students, for them to be able to come and see what it might look like if you wanted to try and sell your artwork when you were done school, right? Because that was something for myself when I was done school that I really didn't know how to go about that. There was a lot of trial and error. There was a lot of trying different things. So yeah, I really see this as longevity is what I would hope to have, and be able to support as many artists as we can, and be a place in the community for people to be able to come and hang out and come back multiple times, see what we have on display, and feature different artists and different shows and such.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Yeah, like that really strikes me, like you mentioned, just that kind of that gap between, okay, I've graduated and I want to put my art out there, but maybe there isn't the opportunity, especially maybe in like Southern Alberta. Would you say that's the case? Or trying to get your pieces out there?
Yeah, I think that there's lots of opportunities in Southern Alberta, but as a student, you just don't really know about them, you know, or even as an artist going from maybe a stage of your life where you're a hobbyist, or you're just emerging, or you're just doing it for yourself, and then wanting to go to that point where you're ready to share your art, and have some more feedback even from different artists. I think that that's also something that's really an opportunity that we can have here at Art Room.
Yeah, because it seems like based on your experience with your other group and your Art Room on Second group, it is about that community building and getting together. And
yeah, because as an artist, you know, you spend a lot of time on your own in your studio, and for the most part, that's something that I love. Like, I crave that time where it's just me and creating and getting in that zone. But you also need to balance that with you know, getting out there, possibly showing your work, or just spending time with other artists, collaborating on things, or maybe taking a class even, and getting to experience that.
Absolutely, yeah. I can't remember if you mentioned, but are you planning on having like classes here, other types of things?
A lot of the artists that we carry do teach classes, and Medicine Hat's great because they have a lot of different opportunities to teach. Whether you're at the Esplanade or the Cultural Center, there's private places in town that'll rent out space. Some artists teach out of their own studios or teach at schools. So yeah, that's something that we want to be able to offer to people, not teaching classes right here, but to be able to say, yes, this artist has classes coming up in these venues.
Yeah, okay, more of a networking.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah, nice. Well, that's great. Yeah, I'm really excited for the space and what you've put together, and it's really lovely. I guess our last question, because we're running short on time here, we try to ask everyone, is kind of very generally, like how has your artistic practice influenced your everyday life?
I think that my artistic practice is my everyday life. It is definitely a part of it. Even if I'm not out in the studio, say, every single day, I feel that creativity is something that I show when I cook, or when I, decorate my home, when I get dressed in the morning. I just feel like that's something that is part of my everyday life.
Absolutely, you can't really separate the two.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And what I share with my kids too, right? I think that they probably, maybe they don't realize it, but they probably see it every single day. No, what a great example of someone like yourself, like your mom doing it and doing all this. I'm sure it's very inspiring for them. That's great. Well, that's all the time we have for this segment, so I really enjoyed the conversation, getting to know you a bit and your artistic journey. So this has been TELUS Storyhive's On Location here in Medicine Hat at Art Room on Second. I'm Michael Barr.
I'm Daniel J. Perryman, and this is me.
Erin Stelmaschuk Biegel.
All right, and we'll be right back.
Hello and welcome once again to TELUS STORYHIVE's On Location in Medicine Hat at the Art Room on 2nd. I'm Daniel J. Perryman, and I'm super excited to jump into your showcase here and kind of see a bit more of your pieces up close and learn a bit more about your process. So yeah, let's just dive in with the pieces that are right behind us. So these are in the gallery here, and yeah, I'm just curious more so about like the how do you choose which pieces to put together, and what's the thought process behind that?
Okay. Quite often I create in collections, which is common for a lot of artists. Sometimes if you're working with some certain imagery, you might want to try it out, different sizes, different orientations, and play with that. And sometimes it takes a little bit more to kind of get it out of your system too. And you'll work on multiple canvases, in my point, multiple pieces of copper. So typically I like working in collections. They all hang very well together. And if people are collecting pieces, it's a nice way to kind of have things from different collections of an artist. Yeah.
Nice.
And then because my work is all predominantly nature inspired, it hangs quite nicely together. So this piece here in the center is called At the Foot of Sweetgrass. And I've done a lot of pieces with grain elevators. Growing up on a farm and currently farming, this is something that's really near and dear to me. This one here is a barn that was from a photograph that I had taken, and this is down close to Writing on Stone. Yeah. And I'm currently working on some more pieces with the Sweetgrass Hills in the background. Yeah, so that's sort of an ongoing collection. The sunflowers on either side, they're something that I also really gravitate towards. It's the wild sunflowers that you see down here in southern Alberta. And there was a few summers. I feel like I also create kind of seasonally. So there was a few late summers, August, Septembers, that I was just creating with wild sunflowers. And I just, all different sizes and shapes. These ones don't have any color in them. Some of the other ones in the gallery do have a little bit of color in them. And this is one here as well. Yeah, that's another one. This one's got a lot more color in it. So yeah, that's kind of how I like to work with collections. And like I said, sometimes it'll all be in one shot. Sometimes it's a collection that I go back to and keep creating, putting them together.
What do mistakes look like in this discipline? Yeah, are there mistakes, or are there happy accidents? What is that like for you?
Yeah, there definitely are mistakes. And the thing with the copper is you can't go back. So quite often mistakes get incorporated. Because my work is mainly nature inspired, like this piece, for example, I think if something wasn't quite right there in the grass, say, I would just play with it a little bit more and kind of push that portion of the piece a little bit more and see if I could incorporate it. I have done pieces before where I have really mucked up, and that just has to be put aside as a piece that did not work. Sometimes I will go back to them with different mediums when I'm experimenting with things, because then I've got a piece of copper that's got imagery on it, and I can try something different to color it, or with the resin, for example. So there's not a lot of stuff in my studio that's really wasted. Even my copper cutoffs, sometimes I make like ornaments out of them, and just different fun things like that.
You also mentioned like seasonality of pieces, and you mentioned sunflowers, and there's some up here, but we do have one right with us, and potentially an image of it. But I'm going to pull this up, and hopefully Michael can let me know if it's more or less in frame at some point. But yeah, this has color in it. Sunflowers. What can you tell me about this piece? Does it have a name?
This piece does have a name. I am going to have to look.
Yeah.
Rhyme and Reason to the Wild Outdoors is
Okay.
what this one is called.
Nice.
Yeah. And so for quite a while, I was coloring my sunflowers. It would just be the copper with the patina. So the patina is what leaves the black impression in all the recessed areas. And this one I was trying out the turquoise in the background. So again, I did a really small collection of this. I think that there was just 3 pieces that I played with that turquoise to see how I liked it with the copper. And yeah, I really quite like it.
And what can you tell me about adding color to copper? How do you get it to stay, or is it just a time waiting game?
Yeah, no, this is acrylic. So the color is acrylic. I also have added color to copper with oil pastels and alcohol ink. Those are kind of the 3 mediums that I like to work with. So each piece gets treated with a chemical patina, and that's what changes it like completely black, like this. So the whole piece gets treated with that. And what that does is it accelerates the aging process of the copper. So you don't have to worry about it changing in your home. Yeah. So it changes it completely black. Then I wear a respirator and gloves and steel wool, and I scrub it all back so that the copper is shining and the black patina is just left in the recessed areas. So that's the only part that is a chemical process. All of the other color that you see in my pieces is much more controlled. So it's with the acrylic or oil pastel or alcohol ink.
What can you tell me about these beautiful pieces here?
Yeah, so the Western hats are a relatively new substrate for me. It was, I think, 3 or 4 years ago that the Calgary Stampede, I was a part of their artist gallery there. And they were giving out hats and asking the artists who were showing to create on the hats in whatever way they wanted. And then those were donated back. And the Calgary Stampede sponsors a scholarship program for kids. And so I was like, oh, maybe I can put copper on this hat. And so it was a white hat that I first did. And it was really well received. Again, I was advertising it like crazy and trying to share it all over social media so that they could get as many bids as they could, so it could go for as much as it could to support the kids. And people that had collected my artwork in the past were really excited about it. It showed really well at the Stampede. They had quite a beautiful setup for all the hats. They were all under glass, sort of like a museum display almost. And they, it was just really well received. The person that actually ended up bidding on it and purchasing it had it in their ranch office on display as a piece of sculpture. So they really went with it, and I got excited about it and kept creating more of these pieces. So yeah.
Beautiful, yeah. And I guess I'm just curious, I see some sunflower, I believe, over here. And just so, like, what was that like, kind of creating something to go on a piece of clothing, essentially? Like, had you ever worked in this shape before?
No, I hadn't. It was the first time that I'd done that. So designing it was really quite different. This piece has the full brim. Since I've been playing with it more, I've done some that have some copper up on the edges, and some that are not a full brim, who are just that have just kind of smaller pieces here and there. So yeah, I've really been able to play with it. But yeah, it's a whole nother design element to play with.
Yeah, no, super beautiful, and such an awesome story of kind of making that a reality. One of the last pieces that I definitely want to talk about is the Aurora piece, and I just was so taken by the coloring of it, and just, can you tell me the kind of story behind that piece? And
so I think the piece that you're talking about is over top of a grain elevator. So the Aurora Borealis, so me growing up in northern Alberta, the Northern Lights were something that we enjoyed regularly. I know that the cycle that they're on, it is more prevalent the past couple of years down in southern Alberta. But growing up north, that was something that was really common for us. So I have incorporated them into my copper work, and there is kind of a different technique that I use when I do that. Sometimes I actually sort of scratch the copper and you get more of like a glint. and then I'll add some acrylic as well to bring out those colors. And quite often, if you look closely on the Aurora ones, you'll also see constellations. So yeah, there's a lot to take in on those pieces.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love that idea of getting to play with your techniques with the material, and just, it sounds like there are some like fairly hard and fast rules, but then also trying stuff and seeing what happens from those. So yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. I do think that's the time that we have.
Okay.
Thank you so much for inviting us into the gallery and just giving us your time and energy.
Well, thank you guys very much for this opportunity, and thanks for wanting to come out to Medicine Hat and shoot it here at the gallery. It's great.
Yeah. This has been TELUS STORYHIVE's On Location here in Medicine Hat at Art Room on 2nd. I'm Daniel J. Perryman.
I'm Michael Bartz, and this is
Erin Stelmaschuk Biegel.
Thank you so much for watching, folks.
If you or someone you know has a story to tell, scan this QR code and get in touch with the StoryHive On Location team.